Hi, I'm Sayli and I'm one of the expert TOEFL teachers at e2language.com. And today I'm going to share with you 3 ways to prepare for the TOEFL at home. So the first one is textbooks. So this is the traditional way that people prepare for tests or study in general. The second way that I'm going to talk to you about is using online practice tests. There are a lot of online practice tests, I'm sure you guys know. So if you just Google TOEFL practice, there's I don't even know how many millions of pages that show up. So you can definitely use that method to prepare for the test. And finally, if you're very serious about getting a good score and you're ready to invest more time and money into it, you can definitely hire a private tutor. So today I'm going to talk to you about the pros and cons of each of these methods and sort of help you bring all the good aspects of these 3 methods together to get the best test prep experience. Are you ready? Let's get into it. All right, so the first method, using textbooks. Let's look at the pros first. As we all know, textbooks are usually written by experts in the field. ETS, the company that basically makes TOEFL, has a lot of textbooks that they've put out there that you can use that has, they do have limited number of practice tests. So each book comes with 4 to 8 practice tests. I haven't come across a book that has more than 8. But you know that the material is trustworthy. That's my second pro. So because it is written by experts, we know that the material is trustworthy and it's coming from reliable sources. So those are the 2 pros of using textbooks, especially textbooks put out by ETS. Now let's look at the cons. All right, so the first con is that most of the material that's in those textbooks is actually outdated, and even the information in the textbooks is outdated. So you guys probably know that the test changed last year in August. So the number of questions were reduced, the time was reduced, and this changed the structure and the format of some sections of the test. If you don't know what the changes were, check out our video on TOEFL exam changes. You'll probably be able to find the link in the description. But most of the textbooks, actually all of the textbooks, have still not been updated. So if you order a textbook today, you're probably going to get a copy that's basically following the old format, and this can be misleading, and you might end up practicing questions that probably won't show up in the exam, or that might not follow the new format. So it is kind of dangerous to use information that's outdated. Another problem with using textbooks is actually the mode of delivery. Okay, so what does different mode of delivery mean? So as you guys know, the TOEFL IBT stands for Internet-Based TOEFL, and it's usually delivered via computer. So not usually, it's always delivered via computer, but there is another version of the TOEFL, which is the paper-based TOEFL. But it's not that popular around the world. Very few countries still have the paper-based version. Most countries use the internet-based version, which is the TOEFL IBT. And if you are preparing for this test, it makes sense to sort of practice online, because you are going to be clicking on the correct answers, you are going to be dragging them using a mouse, you are going to use a keyboard to type in your essay basically. So the best way to practice is use that technology that you will be using on test day. And if you're using a textbook, you can't really do that. Even though you could write an essay after reading the question from the textbook, you can probably write the essay in a Word doc or something like that. It doesn't really replicate the real test experience, and that is something that is important when you're practicing for the test. So that is definitely a con for using textbooks. Now let's look at the other side of the coin, which is online practice. Let's look at the pros. So it is replicating the mode of delivery of the test. That is definitely a pro. Another pro is the ease of access. You can conveniently access a lot of material online, and most of this material is cheap, or very often it's actually free of cost. So you can access it from anywhere, whenever you want, and it won't cost you much, or it'll be free. So those are definitely the pros. How about the cons? I think the most important thing to point out is that a lot of the information that's available on these websites is actually very unreliable. So anyone can start a website, as you guys know, or a blog, and those people are not necessarily experts, or it's just someone who's taken the test, so they don't really know what goes into making a test. So based on anecdotal experience, they'll sort of just hypothesize that this is probably what happens in all the tests, and that is not necessarily true, and that can end up misguiding a lot of students who are preparing for the test. So I think that's one of the major flaws with online practice tests. Another con would be finding reliable resources. So again, like I said, you can't really trust a lot of things that are out there. So maybe there's like a couple of websites that have like authentic material, but then being able to find those and sort of, bringing all of that information together and practicing for the test can be pretty daunting when you are already stressed out about taking the test and you don't have enough time. It can end up being a little bit overwhelming. So that, I think, is why online practice tests sometimes work, sometimes not quite. And how about private tutors? I honestly think having a private tutor train you to take the test is the best way to go. You can get expert advice from them, and they basically know the exam front to back, and you can trust their advice, unlike some of the online practice tests. Another benefit of meeting with a private tutor is that you'll get individual attention, which obviously you don't really get like teaching or training if you're using a textbook or online prep material. You can only get that when there's a person, a real person who's sort of teaching you, making sure that you've understood, and taking you through some sort of course material. But to be honest, not everybody can afford private tutors. They can be pretty expensive. So that is definitely a con. Or even if they're not expensive, if you're like me, you wouldn't want to spend like hundreds of dollars on getting private tutors, but that's just me. Another problem would be scheduling issues. So if you are someone who's very busy and who has very limited time, it can be difficult to get a tutor to come teach you at, say, 9 o'clock at night. And if that's the only time you get off work, it can be really difficult to schedule a time that fits your needs. And also, if a tutor is good, they're probably going to be very busy and they're not going to have enough slots to accommodate you. All right, so far we've looked at 3 ways to prepare for the TOEFL. Number 1 was using textbooks. Number 2 was using online practice tests. And number 3 was hiring private tutors. But what if I told you you could have all of the above for a fraction of the cost of getting a private tutor, getting material that's reliable, trustworthy, created by experts in the field, and have access to hundreds and hundreds of good quality practice questions? All you need to do is sign up to www.e2language.com so that you don't have to go looking for reliable practice materials. We have curated a course for you. We've got reading questions, listening questions, speaking, and writing. If you feel like you're struggling and you need some personal attention, you can book a one-on-one tutorial with one of our experts. Thank you so much for joining me today, and best of luck for your test. Bye.